time I jot these thoughts and get up on my conscious hit toes by most of populace. Popular from the bars I spit from start to end, guns cocked in my noggin way I'm popping shit. Who's really trying to stop the kid and think they'll live to tell? Haters talk behind my back, but to my face they wish me well. Hell, shit, at least I ain't living inside a cell. Still, fuck what they say if they ain't paying my bills. Yo, it's real. These bitches tell me the more I blow up, I'm getting cocky. Just cause I know I'm worth Versace and these dudes will swap me. They see me walking, they start flocking like they paparazzi. I'm with the posse, can't no one stop me. Your bitches jocking, calling me Poppy, it's true. It's war when I wake up in the morning. You suckers take this as a warning. You got the sunrise to get going in. I'm coming for that crown, coming for that crown. I wanna win, 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 I wanna win. I'm just shining. I wanna win, 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 I wanna win. I'm just shining. Did we winning feel like? Did we winning feel like? Did we winning feel like? Hustling, grinding, I'm just shining. Did we winning feel like? Did we winning feel like? Did we winning feel like? Hustling, grinding, I'm just shining. Competitive nature, chip on my shoulder, ain't no one greater. I go for mine when it's showtime. I shine like I'm a Laker. I'm focused, my weed is potent. I'm always over the dosage, letting everyone know that I'm dope on my flow till they notice I'm cool.
Hello,
Hello,
everyone. Music's still blasting, but we're here. We're here to talk about the Week 9 fantasy slate. Obviously, we just got some news about the 49ers. We will start out with that, but with me, as always, on Wednesday evenings are the two who call themselves the Gurley guys. We'll talk about Todd Gurley a little bit later, but Luke and Trevor are here. How's it going, boys?
So I was a good day when I can bust out my 2010 Oregon LaMichael James jersey. So
Yeah, what a day. What a day. Happy times all around. Hopefully we can be an escape from the political nonsense and give you some sports nonsense. I'm sure there will be no shortage of hot takes here today, as always on Wednesdays. But honestly, a lot of the times where we freak out and have some hot takes, they happen. You guys, 2 or 3 weeks in a row now, speak
2 for 2, baby.
Todd Gurley performances into existence. We'll see what you guys are predicting for this week. Of course, if you're watching on Twitter, head over to the Flurry Sports YouTube. Just type in Flurry Sports. You can participate in the chat, ask us any questions there. If you just want to sit on Twitter and watch us and creep, that's fine too. It doesn't bother me. Retweet it though, share it. That'd be cool. But let's just talk about the 49ers-Packers game to start. Then we can get into the rankings. So now Brandon Ayuk is not going to play as well. So we're talking about Brandon Ayuk and Kendrick Bourne both being out with COVID. We have Jamal Williams, and who else is out for COVID for the Packers? I don't even remember.
A.J. Dillon.
A.J. Dillon, so 2 running backs there. Aaron Jones. I talked about last night, Aaron Jones is fully healthy. The only way he'd be held out is for contract dispute, or contract leverage, rather. Now, what I'm hearing is completely different. They don't want to get him COVID. Like, why would they play him in this game? So even if this game goes, I fully expect Aaron Jones to miss. He may not even be on the sideline. Packers want to make sure they have a healthy running back down the stretch. And I can't say I blame them, because 49ers barely have enough people to field a team right now. It wouldn't surprise me if this game's canceled. Obviously, Packers were hopped on their flight about 3 hours ago, 2.5, 3 hours ago. Also in this game, worth noting, Allen Lazard made the flight, and he is eligible to come off of IR on Saturday, like the day before the game. Tomorrow they can activate him and play him, so there's a chance Allen Lazard plays. There's so much nonsense going back and forth, and I don't know, Luke, Trevor, what's your guys' opinion? Do you think this game's even played? Like, is this just completely irrelevant talk right now, or do you think they try to play it with skeleton teams, I suppose?
yeah, I'm aiming more toward the skeleton. I feel like if this game's played, the Packers are in a decent spot right now to make some noise going into the playoffs. It would boggle my mind if they went out there, and put their best team out there, played as hard as they could. It's just an odd situation. Zach, I'm kind of sad that you said that you don't think Aaron Jones is going to play. After talking him up all last night, I'm all excited. I need him big time this week, and now I got to find a replacement. But, for the Packers, it's probably best he doesn't play, just thinking off the top of my head here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think they will play. I think it's stupid if they do, to be honest, by the NFL. There have been rumblings, in case people haven't heard of, I'm sure we've all heard of it, of possibly a 16-team playoff because of the missed weeks. I look at this, I say, at the very least, you have to move it back. I mean, with all these COVID cases, there's no way you know who has and who doesn't. But I guess they're going to play it. I think they should at least push it back. But hey, if they haven't said anything yet, they're going to play it. But it's going to be interesting. Maybe a get-right game for Pettin. I mean, he has nobody to go against offensively, so he has no excuses this week, but we'll see.
You're not there. Yeah, it all comes down to the COVID test tomorrow. If there's another positive out of the 49ers team, I don't see them playing this game. I don't know how they could, legally at this point. I don't think they could. I don't know. In my heart, the way I see this shaping out is the NFL creates a Week 18 for all of these weird rescheduled games. 49ers will be nice and healthy, getting to play the Packers, and we'll get smashed. That's the way I see it happening. That's just being a pessimistic Packer fan. But I don't know. I think you can count on anyone in this game playing tomorrow. If you have 49ers players, I guess Hasty's in a great spot to be a bell cow, especially because Jerick McKinnon apparently has tired legs. So it's Hasty, no Mostert, no Coleman, no Jeff Wilson. And then now no Ayuk, no Kendrick Bourne, no Jimmy Garoppolo, no George Kittle. I like Ross Dwelly. I was going to talk him up later because I think Nick Mullins targets him a lot, but fuck, I don't know. Full avoid for me. For the Packers, I love Dexter Williams. I think Tyler Irvin gets a lot of run if the game is competitive. Yeah, whatever. Let's jump into quarterbacks. There's not even a point in really predicting that game because at this point, Aaron Rodgers might get COVID tonight too. Who knows?
Hey, don't say that. Don't you dare.
Aaron Rodgers can shake it off, though, I'm sure. He's just that great. Let's jump into my quarterbacks here. As always, we'll go top 5 at each position, and then we can talk about notable ones. We will compare my rankings to the rest of the industry consensus to see where I disagree or agree. These guys will tell me if I am completely way off, like I always am on Todd Gurley, or if they are in agreements with me, and the rest of the industry doesn't know what they're doing, like Zach Moss last week, stuff like that. So right now, quarterback number 1 for this week, week 9, I have Russell Wilson at Buffalo. I don't know how people are ranking Mahomes above Russell Wilson right now. I know for sure I'm different on that, but riding with the hot hand. In one less game, Russell Wilson has outscored Patrick Mahomes for the year. So, yeah, he has to be number 1. Number 2, I have Patrick Mahomes versus Carolina. Number 3, Murray off a bye versus Miami. Number 4, Deshaun Watson at Jacksonville, also Watson off a bye. And then number 5, I have the rookie Justin Herbert versus Vegas. So, Trevor, what do you think about that top 5?
I would probably put Murray above Mahomes. I think Mahomes is a better outlook, but I mean, Mahomes has outscored Murray by like 7 or 8 points, and he hasn't had his bye yet. And I look at Herbert at 5. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I love him. He is not the reason this team is blowing these leads. I'll say it once. I'll say it again. I think it's Anthony Lynn. But hey, if they keep blowing these leads, great for him because he keeps passing. And he's got, Allen. He's got Hunter Henry. Eckler will be back sometime soon. We don't know, but obviously not for this week. But he's got weapons too, so I love him at 5 as well.
Yeah. I don't really have any disputes. I think at this point in the season, just that Terry's been on, Russell Wilson almost always needs to be looked at as number one. I would say no matter the matchup. I mean, just go along with your Herbert thing there, Trevor. Like Justin Herbert has been phenomenal the last four weeks that he's played. I don't know how. I mean, it might be different league scoring, but in the league I have him in, it's come 27 points, 31 points, 41 points, 26 points. You know, and he's playing the Raiders defense, who up and down, not really scare you much. Once again, I think this is another game where Justin Herbert shows that. You know,
That's Todd Gurley's agent calling us.
sorry.
That's right. Get Todd Gurley on the horn.
God, I wish. Just to finish that thought, I think it was just another game where Justin Herbert shows, that he's the rookie of the year over Joe Burrow. It's a divisional game, so it'll be a tight, close game. I love Justin Herbert. I love him a lot this week. I might even move up top 3.
That is fair. Yeah, he just needs to be started right now. And then Raiders obviously do not scare you. They don't have a good pass rush. They don't have a good secondary. Pretty bad combination when trying to defend the pass. Any other quarterbacks? Oh, I talked about Cam Newton last night. I said if I was feeling aggressive, feeling a little bit feisty, a little spicy, I was going to put him top 12. He's in my top 10. I have Cam Newton number 9 against the New York Jets on Monday Night Football. I said it last night. I'll say it again. Cam Newton, prime time. Bill Belichick, prime time. They obviously have been getting slaughtered. They have looked absolutely horrendous, so they should be getting slaughtered in the media. But this is a game where Bill Belichick comes and flexes his big brain. I think Cam Newton shows that he is capable of at least running the football. They play the Jets. That's probably the biggest pro in terms of why I like him. But even Cam Newton looked horrible last week. He was quarterback 12. So I think Cam Newton can look better and be quarterback 9. And just comparing to the rest of the industry, I am 4 spots higher on Cam Newton than the industry consensus. They have him at 13. I have him at 9. The other 2 that I'm higher on, at least 3 higher on, is Tom Brady at 6. Industry consensus has him at 9. We just saw last week Drew Brees took the touchdown record from Brady. Brady took it back. They play each other this week. I think it's tough to run against the Saints. On top of that, Antonio Brown's making his debut. Chris Godwin's practicing in full, so he may be there. I find it very tough to believe that Brady doesn't throw for at least 3 touchdowns in this game. The other guy is Tua Tagovailoa. I have him at 18. That's 3 spots higher. People are slaughtering him. Whatever show Skip Bayless is on now, undisputed. They're saying, could the Miami Dolphins move on from Tua Tagovailoa in the draft? I said, that's the stupidest take I ever heard. And then people were defending Skip Bayless on my timeline. So I might move Tua up just in spite of them. Just fuck those people. What's your guys' thoughts? More specifically on Cam Newton, but if you guys have thoughts on the other 2 as well. Luke, you can start.
Skip Bayless, that's funny. I think he's like one of the funniest people in sports next to Charles Barkley. So it's funny that you brought him up there. Cam Newton, we talked in depth about him last night. We talked about Damian Harris, whatever. But Cam Newton is definitely, a candidate to get those rushing touchdowns at the goal line. Like I said last night, Cam Newton has not thrown a touchdown pass in how many weeks now? This seems like a game, just like a beat the crap out of the Jets game. Try to get Cam Newton some easy throws, try to get him going so he can, stay fresh, stay good the rest of the year. And that might include him, putting the offense around him, making him run a couple times, QB draws here and there. So I'm all for Cam Newton top 10, basically because it's a beat the shit out of the Jets kind of week.
And also, if they get out to a big lead, he'll just run the ball. And I wouldn't be surprised if he runs for a touchdown, too. 6 points versus 4. He's definitely a top 10 play. And I won't give it too much time because Skip Bayless is not worth any amount of time. But we talked about this last week. They're playing the Rams. They aren't playing a JV team. They're playing the Rams with the best defensive end and statistically one of the best cornerbacks. What the hell do you expect from this man less than a year removed from a dislocated hip? Don't be stupid. That's why, our tweets, Zach, yours about Skip and mine defending you, saying, yes, these people are stupid. That's why it got so much love on Twitter, because people aren't dumb. Although the people that watch his show and take everything he says as gospel, maybe, but we'll move on.
Yeah, he was under pressure the entire time. He also barely had to do anything in that game because the defense did everything. So, like, he stepped on the field with like a 3-touchdown lead, having thrown like 5 passes at that point. So, whatever. We'll see. We'll see with Tua. I'm also not ranking him high. I have him at 18. That's perfectly fine. I have Drew Brees 3 spots lower. I have him at 19. I have Teddy Bridgewater 3 spots lower. I have him at 20. I had Nick Mullins 3 spots lower than the consensus. Maybe the consensus down on him now too because he has no one to pass to. I don't know. This week it seems pretty straightforward for quarterbacks. I will say this is notable because if you're not expecting this at this point, you need to wake up. I have Lamar Jackson ranked behind Cam Newton. I have him at number 10, and that could be high. Lamar Jackson plays the Colts. Colts obviously a great defense, but on top of that, Lamar Jackson's doing nothing. He was quarterback 17 last week. Quarterback 6 against the Eagles. That should be a lot higher. Quarterback 18 against the Bengals. Quarterback 23 against the Chiefs. Quarterback 18 against the Texans, who that was back when they couldn't defend anything. Lamar Jackson doesn't need to be a locked-in QB1 right now, especially against the Colts, so I may even move him down a little bit lower. I also tweeted out today, Lamar Jackson's outscored Dak Prescott, I believe, by 4 points this season. And we know Dak Prescott hasn't played in quite a while. That's the state of the NFL right now. Call it the Madden curse, call it whatever you want. But Lamar Jackson was not worth that ADP where you took him. Sorry to say. Any other quarterbacks you guys would like to talk about here?
I'm just trying to think in my head here. Who would you have as your like lowest ranked quarterback here that you'd start over Lamar Jackson this week?
I think I'd be willing to take Drew Lock over him. Drew Lock plays at the Falcons. Drew Lock I have ranked at 16. Could move a little higher. It's definitely easier to pass on the Falcons than run. So, and we know for a fact the Broncos are going to get down early. Falcons are going to get up early. Both teams, that's their pattern. Then it's going to even out. And then someone has to lose him in the end. So I think he's going to be in a passing situation as well.
Yeah, I'd like to touch on Lamar Jackson too. He's thrown for over 200 yards 3 times out of 7 weeks. And 2 of those times he threw for 204 and 208. So when you're doing that, you better run for a lot and run for a touchdown. And he's just not doing it. And against his secondary, if he gets behind early, I see him panicking. I don't see him doing that well. And I see him throwing at least 1 pick. So, yeah, I sorry if you drafted him, but I mean, he's under Matt Ryan right now. He's under Jared Goff. Jared Goff is a game in hand, but still, I mean, it's sorry to break it to you, but he's not all that good this year, fantasy-wise.
Yeah. Cam Newton by no means has looked like a competent NFL quarterback. Cam Newton has averaged 1 less point per game than Lamar Jackson. That's all you need to know. And if you've watched Lamar Jackson, he also doesn't look like a competent passer either. Let's just jump over to running backs. There's a lot more to talk about here. Obviously, my rankings are thrown off a little bit because I had Aaron Jones up there. We will talk about these assuming this game is played. We'll talk about these assuming the Vikings-Lions game is played. We're assuming a lot. Shit's starting to hit the fan in the NFL. What a fun time to be alive. I have Dalvin Cook as my RB1 against the Lions. We saw Dalvin Cook go crazy last week. He's looking good. Vikings O-line's gelling. Lions suck against the run. They suck against everything. But Dalvin Cook should be able to do whatever he wants. I have Christian McCaffrey in his return, number 2 against the Chiefs. Alvin Kamara, 3rd against the Buccaneers. Henry, number 4 against the Bears. And then James Robinson, number 5 against the Houston Texans. And also, by the way, Gardner Minshew may miss. That's something I probably should have said in quarterbacks. That's a big deal for that entire Jaguars offense. Trevor, what do you think about those 5 running backs?
I think this could be a real interesting week where a lot of the top running backs actually don't perform that well. You mentioned Derrick Henry against Chicago, James Robinson. If the new quarterback coming in isn't good, Houston will just sell it on the run. Tampa Bay's run defense is no joke. McCaffrey's going to be limited, and Dalvin Cook, hey, he's talented. Packers can't stop running back even if the other team throws 3 offensive linemen out there. Okay, so let's pump the brakes a little bit on Dalvin Cook. But yeah, I like the top 5. I'm looking at maybe Chase Edmonds getting in there just for his PPR value, and even behind Drake, he was a monster. But overall, obviously hindsight's 2020. I like the top 5.
Yeah, I like the top 5 too. Dalvin Cook against the Lions just spews fantasy points for me. If you guys have been following my Survivor picks, I made the horrible decision of taking Detroit last week over the Colts. I knew I was tempting the fantasy gods with that one, and they just looked like absolute shit. They let running backs run all over them, and I expect Dalvin Cook to do the same thing this week. I mean, there's not much else to say. You have the 4 top running backs in the league at top 4. I like, Trevor, what you said about James Robinson. It kind of made me change my opinion there. I was thinking that James Robinson is going to get all the carries, going to eat. But if there's no competent quarterback, it just seems like a stack the box kind of week. But I think that's the risk reward you can play, and the risk I think is definitely top 5 week for James Robinson.
Speaking of Survivor, we did the first Survivor pool, then we did the second chance starting last week. I've gotten to make 2 Survivor picks across 2 pools. Week 1, I picked the Colts against the Jaguars. Last week, I picked the fucking Packers. Oh my god, I'm so pissed off.
$10. Goodbye. Goodbye.
I think I've got like an 85% like pick accuracy across the entire season so far for like mainline picks. But 0 for 2 for Survivors. I'm so angry. I thought about Chiefs, but I didn't do it.
Still hit more than a Gutekunst in trade deadline. So.
Oh my god, I can't stand this Packers team. It's getting close to McCarthy levels again. I digress. Right now, like I said, I have Aaron Jones at number 9. If he plays, I put him at 9. If he doesn't play, I like Dexter Williams more. I would have him. Just looking at players right now. You can find the rankings at flurrysports.org. You can follow along. I think I would put Dexter Williams at 27 above Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor supposedly dealing with an ankle issue. Apparently that hurts your vision as well. He's been a massive disappointment, and that's from a Badger fan who I think Jonathan Taylor is terrific. I don't know what's going on, but yeah, I would put Dexter Williams at 27. I think he's a stud. But I believe Notre Dame running back. If the Packers are winning by a lot, he is for sure the play. If it's a competitive game, the Packers let Hasty run all over them, and the Packers are trailing, certainly possible, then Tyler Ervin is going to be the better play. Ervin's going to be involved no matter what, but he is more of a receiver than a running back. If Jones is out, I would put Ervin really close. I would probably put him 36, right behind James White. With Jones in, I still have Tyler Ervin at 44. I think he plays a role no matter what. Aaron Jones, as much as people don't know, I guess, Aaron Jones isn't receiving back. Tyler Ervin is, though. I suppose talking about Baltimore running backs is useful. We talked up both of them last night as pickups. I have J.K. Dobbins at 16. Yes, the Colts are a really tough run defense, but having a mobile quarterback just completely opens up everything. And the Colts are a really tough run defense mostly because of DeForest Buckner on the inside. If they can run motion one way, get Buckner moving one way, Jackson's going to either pull it or give it, and that completely takes him out of the play. So I think the running game is going to be successful for the Ravens here. So I have Dobbins at 16. I have Gus Edwards at 26. I may move Edwards up, Dobbins down, because if Ravens are in control, it's going to be the Dobbins show. Or it's going to be the Edwards show, rather. If it's close, then Dobbins is going to get some receiving work. But both are worthy of starts this week. Luke, do you have any other running backs you want to talk about here before we go to the expert consensus here?
Just going along with the Baltimore backfield there. We talked about it again last night, but like I said, I'm going to double down on it. I think Gus Edwards is the play here because he's going to get the touchdowns. I don't see J.K. Dobbins getting ran at the goal line. Like I said last night too, the Colts defense is a bend don't break, so they're going to give up yards. They're going to get to the Baltimore's going to get to the red zone. Then they're going to need just the running back who puts his head down and just smashes right down the middle. I see that being Gus Edwards, and I think Gus Edwards does score this week. I picked him up. I'm playing him this week with Aaron Jones being out. So,
do you have Elaire like any higher or lower than the scheduled consensus?
No, not when I have it at 4 here. No, I'm like right in line.
Because I just like to bring him up real quick. Week 1, 19 points. Week 6, 20. Week 3, 18. Outside of that, he's had 2 weeks of 12, 2 weeks of 11, 1 week of 6. Since Bella's come in, he's averaged 9 points a game. You have him at 10, and I think it's definitely going to be a running game. They're going to win. But if you have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, try to sell him while you can. I know he's not selling high, but it's not going to get any higher. He's just kind of touchdown dependent if you want RB1 numbers. So I think he's a guy you definitely got to sound the alarm bells on him, even though it might seem a little early.
And to your point, if you can get good value for him this week, tremendous matchup. Panthers can't stop the run, so he should be fine. Then he has a bye. He comes back against the Raiders, pretty good matchup. Then he has the Buccaneers, the Broncos, Dolphins is a good matchup. Then he has the Saints. So you're looking at fantasy playoffs. It might be Denver, Dolphins, Saints, Falcons, which doesn't bring you a ton of confidence. There's certainly better options out there that you could probably trade him straight up for. I'd probably want James Conner over him, I suppose. Someone like that. Yeah, good point. In the same way we talked about Lamar Jackson, let's talk about Ezekiel Elliott a little bit here. Elliott clearly has been struggling along with the rest of the Dallas Cowboys, so you can't really put too much of a knock on him. He also plays the Steelers this week. I have him at running back 14. Consensus has him at 12. It's tough. So in half PPR, he's finished as running back 28, running back 40, and running back 32 the past 3 weeks. Looking at his schedule, he doesn't have one green schedule in the entire season. He just has a ton of tough run defenses. I don't think I would sell him just because I don't think you can. But wow. After the bye, which is next week, he has Minnesota, Washington, Baltimore, Bengals, 49ers, Eagles to round out the year. He's another guy. I'm sorry if you drafted him. It looked like a good draft pick, but stop thinking of him as RB1, I guess. Is that fair to say, Trevor?
Yeah, I think the number one mistake of people, and also me when I first started playing fantasy, is I thought about these guys like an Elliott. He's my first-round draft pick. I'm not selling him for anything less. You got to change, because if you don't, you're going to get burned. He is not going to have a good quarterback. Last 2 weeks, he's had 13. These defenses are just going to stack the box. I mean, this team couldn't even beat the Eagles, and the Eagles did everything in their power to lose that game, like they always do. So I don't see why you should have him. And you brought up a good point. You really can't sell him for much if you still have him. If you didn't see the writing on the wall, I'm sorry. If you can't get literally anything, anything higher in table scraps, get rid of him, because it's not going to get better.
Yeah, with you saying that, I'm really trying to think in my head how I can spin this to Ezekiel Elliott being a good player. As far as fantasy goes for the rest of the year, obviously he's a great running back, but for fantasy goes, they got nothing at quarterback. Offense can't move. They got Mike McCarthy and the coach. It's just not a good recipe for running backs, as proved by outside of 1 year of Eddie Lacy, the Packers, the last 10, 15 years, Yeah, Ezekiel, it's a tough one. I was very high on him this year. I thought that Dallas was going to be good. Dak Prescott was going to have a breakout year. But no, I mean, I'm doing it this week. I'm starting Justin Jackson over Ezekiel Elliott this week. And I don't think that I'm even going to think about it once Sunday comes. So
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, 43 attempts through the last 3 games since, I mean, I don't know what else to say. It speaks for itself. He doesn't run the ball, he's not going to score. So
yeah. I know there's one running back you guys want to talk about. He'll naturally come up here when I compare with industry consensus. So in terms of guys I'm higher on than the consensus, I have Hasty 3 spots higher. I have him at 15. I have Damian Harris at RB 17. That's 4 spots higher. We talked about Gus Edwards. I have him at 26. That's 7 spots higher than the industry consensus. I think people are sleeping on him a little bit. I have Wayne Gallman at 29. That's assuming Devontae Freeman doesn't play. Kind of hedging. If Freeman doesn't play, I'll probably move him up. But he looked, I thought, really good against Tampa last week. I have him 5 spots higher. And then Troy Maine Pope is the guy the Chargers brought in to play above Josh Kelly, apparently. I have him at 45. That's 8 spots higher than the consensus. And then I guess if you're super, super desperate, it's worth talking Benny Snell Jr., obviously backup for the Steelers. I have him at 48, which is 3 higher than the consensus. And that take is because I think the Steelers are going to kill the Cowboys. And that would mean Snell comes in at garbage time, takes a touchdown at the end of the game again. And that's not a bold prediction by any means, but there's value in plays like that, I suppose. Luke, do you have any thoughts on any of those running backs?
I mean, we kind of just mentioned, most of them either directly or indirectly. Damian Harris, I like. Like I said before, this is a beat the shit out of the Jets game. Maybe they try to get this rookie running back going. Coming off a big week last week. I like what you said about Benny Snell. I feel like every time I watch Benny Snell run, he runs hard and he looks great running the ball. If they're beating the shit out of the Cowboys, it could be, I would say, a big Benny Snell game. Other than that, it makes sense. I said Gus Edwards is going to score a touchdown this week. I like it.
Troy Maine Pope really impressed me last week. 10 carries, 67 yards. Added in some catches here and there, but he really wasn't featured till like mid part of the game. He looked good, and Joshua Kelly and Justin Jackson has looked decent, but Anthony Lynn really loved Troy Maine Pope, and it's easy to see why. So if you're really desperate, I think this is a great week against a Las Vegas defense that has given up the 5th most to running backs. He's a guy I'm super high on. He might not have sexiest stat line, but he's good. He is really underrated as a runner.
And speaking of Joshua Kelly, I have him at 49, which is 13 spots lower than the consensus, which means the consensus is still ranking Joshua Kelly as RB 36 this week. And I guess I don't know why. He's finished above that once in the past 6 weeks. He plays Vegas. That's good. I personally love Josh Kelly. I think he's a really talented player. Anthony Lynn's not a great coach, as Trevor was talking about earlier, and I think this is a bad decision. But clearly they are moving on from Josh Kelly from right now. He is 3rd in a line of 3, and I don't know how you would start him with confidence this week, I guess. Now, we'll talk about other running backs I'm lower on. The first one on the list is Todd Gurley. Hold back a little bit here. I have him at 13. The consensus is 10. I get it. Todd Gurley looked like he couldn't move last week. I get it. It was a short week, so he's had extra time to rest up. Denver is not an easy run defense. They've stopped a lot of good running backs this year. They even stopped Derrick Henry until like the last drive in the 4th quarter or whatever that was. I think Atlanta's going to have a really tough time running the ball, whereas Denver can clearly be passed over. And I think it's a big Julio Jones week. We'll talk about that in a second. But even still, I have Todd Gurley as running back 13. Trevor, you can begin on why I am wrong and talk about your guys' love for Todd Gurley. I'll listen quietly.
Appreciate it. Todd Gurley in this PPR league I'm in, he's scored 23 less points than Derrick Henry. He doesn't get a whole lot of touches, but what he does get is touchdowns. And they're going to be up early on this team, like you said, and they're going to run the clock. They're going to utilize them a little bit in the passing game. And I look at the guys above him on the rankings, and I'm really not super impressed. New York Giants have a decent defense. CEH we talked about. Aaron Jones we've talked about. Talked about the top 5, some tough matchups. I'm not saying Derrick Henry's going to put up a dud, but we saw this same scenario. I'm just going to say it 2 weeks ago when he had 2 touchdowns and 21 points against Detroit. Different defense.
Uh-huh.
But if they get up, that's Todd Gurley time, baby. I'm saying he's going to be a top 8 running back. I'm going to say it. Top 8 running back this week.
Trevor, I fully agree with everything you just said.
Shocker.
I tweeted out that Todd Gurley is or Circus Peanuts are the Todd Gurley of candy. That being that Circus Peanuts aren't good piece after piece, just like Todd Gurley's not necessarily flashy run after run, but every now and then you get one, and it's just incredible, and that's what you get with Todd Gurley. I mean, the guy is consistent. I was reading, I think it was Matthew Berry said, is Todd Gurley even a running back 2 this year? I said, what are you talking about? He's like 4, 5, 6, 7 running back in fantasy football this year. Denver, you said Denver is not a great, or not a bad run defense, but Todd Gurley's running the ball, Zach. That's what's to happen.
He's RB7 on the year, and I will forgive you for the Circus Peanuts take because you are half of Gurley guys, but that's a different conversation.
Yeah, what kind of comparison is that?
You guys are wild if you don't think Circus Peanuts are good, man.
I think the comparison to Todd Gurley is astounding, but that's because I don't think Circus Peanuts are good.
I thought that was spot on. I was thinking that out in my brain when I was tweeting at you the other day. But
I like the comparison. I don't like what the comparison is to. We will agree to disagree on that.
We might have to start a candy comparison show here with all these different takes we got going on. But anyways, like I said, I like Todd Gurley this week more than David Johnson. I think more than Gibson, more than Allaire. I like him even more than Chase Edmonds. I'll say Todd Gurley top 7 running back this week. My stat line this week for him: 92 yards. 2 rushing touchdowns, and 45 receiving yards.
Top 7, and that's a stat line? Holy shit.
Trevor, you said it yourself. There's not a lot of great matchups for running backs this week.
True.
Yeah.
Well, as I got it right last week, so I got to go for 3 weeks in a row. I said he'd score a late touchdown, early 4th. Give that to me, Zach.
You did.
I think he'll put up. I think he'll put up 75 to 80 yards with a touchdown. Maybe 20 to 30 receiving yards. Nothing too crazy. But, hey, Calvin Ridley is out, so that is possible to Luke's point.
You think that's top 8?
Touchdown with these matchups? That's probably 7 to 8 points on the ground, plus another 6 for a touchdown. That'll take you to about 14.
Was he got like 10
PPR,
catches or what?
3 receptions.
Okay.
Hey, in PPR, 3 receptions and 30 yards. That's another 6. That'll take him about 20 points. When he scored 21, he was RB4, so... I think that'll get him RB8, yeah.
Okay.
I'm no math major, but that sounded good to me.
Yeah.
Early guys.
We'll get you, Zach. We'll get you on board.
I was on board 1 week and you let me down. Yeah, I hate Todd Gurley so much. Other running backs I'm lower on. I have DeAndre Swift at 19. That's 4 spots lower, I guess. I could see myself coming up on that, I suppose. Lions need to use him more in the receiving game with Kenny Golladay out. So maybe that's the reason. Otherwise, I just don't think he runs very well against the Vikings. Now, David Montgomery, I have at RB23, and that's 9 spots lower than the consensus. I truly want to know your guys' opinion on David Montgomery this week. I don't get the love for him being at RB14. Luke, do you have any strong cases for David Montgomery?
I can't say that I do. David Montgomery is probably like the biggest question mark to me in fantasy football this year. I ranked him, if you draft him late at the beginning of the year and he was going to win a fantasy league for you. Obviously that hasn't become true. I just don't think Chicago's offense is, good enough to, have a bell cow running back to feature David Montgomery to get plus carries a game. Tennessee is not the greatest defense, by any means. I can see that being a plus for David Montgomery, but it's just weird to me. Chicago is like this team they're not good, but they play close. They kind of play a little dirty, play here and there. They're always kind of it's just an odd situation for me. I'm off the David Montgomery train just because he didn't live up to my standards of winning you a fantasy football championship. But the matchup against Tennessee is a little inviting, I guess.
I'm actually really high on Tennessee's defense. I was coming into the season like everybody else. I was disappointed. Last 3 weeks, they've been terrible for fantasy, but I look at that Houston game. It's always tough to stop Deshaun. Pittsburgh, they had 3 picks. That'll help fantasy-wise against a decent Pittsburgh offense. Looked bad against Cincinnati. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt because you're playing against a rookie quarterback. It's tough to read that Joe Mixon was out. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, even though I probably shouldn't. But against this Bears defense or offense, I can see them selling out. David Montgomery is not great. He's a decent pass catcher. But if you sell it on the run, what the heck is Nick Foles going to do? I mean, we saw him. Jimmy Graham is starting to look like Packer form again. He's dropping passes. Bears receivers are more interested in punching guys in the face than actually running their routes. And Allen Robinson is probably a little tired, and he's probably a little banged up too. So I just see them stacking against Montgomery, and they have the personnel to do it.
Really quick, did you hear the background on why that guy punched him in the face?
Something to do with spitting, right?
So the drive before, the D-back pulled the guy's mouth guard out or something. So then he went to the sideline. He was just stewing on it for the entire drive, I guess.
For 11 minutes?
I guess. Then he came on the field, just ran on the field and hit him. Okay, buddy.
And they released Ted Ginn.
Right, they didn't really
out of everybody.
Yeah, he's suspended 2 games, and he's worth keeping, I guess.
Cool.
In terms of Tennessee's defense, they haven't been great against the run, but they're also the worst in the league at sacks, in sack percentage. They can't get a pass rush, which makes perfect sense why the Bengals beat them, because obviously we talk about Joe Burrow getting hit nonstop. Last week was the first week he hasn't gotten hit nonstop, and they won. Surprise, surprise. Now you talk about the Bears. Bears' offensive line isn't great. If they don't get a pass rush on Nick Foles, I think Nick Foles is... I think he's good enough to make these passes. That's a big if. But I think he finds Mooney and Allen Robinson a lot this week. I think there's quite a bit of passing yards for Nick Foles this week. And I think that takes away from David Montgomery. On top of that, when they get in the red zone, Bears clearly like to look Jimmy Graham's way. So they're not necessarily going to be pounding the rock in the red zone to get Montgomery a touchdown either. So I just don't think the upside's there for him. Whereas I guess everybody else does. Maybe I'll be proved wrong on this, but right now I have him right behind Zach Moss, and I think that's right. Only other two I want to talk about that I'm lower on. We don't need to say much about them, but I have Jonathan Taylor at 27. That's 3 spots lower. And I have Le'Veon Bell at 31, which is 5 spots lower. Fantasy rankers continue to want to make Le'Veon Bell a thing this season, and it just has not panned out. Hasn't finished higher than RB31 the entire year, yet we're ranking him as RB26, apparently. Whatever. Any thoughts on them or any other running backs here, Trevor?
Again, I'll say it once, I'll say it again. Maybe it's something I'll throw in every show at one point. Narrative. Don't go with the press. Don't go based on narrative. Go based on what you know. It's going to win you the matchups. We talked about Irv Smith Jr. versus Trey Burton. We talked about floor. Trey Burton scored a touchdown, which is great. Irv Smith wasn't great, but he got you that floor. We talk about you got to get points. That's what you need. So when people bring up Le'Veon Bell really high or guys really high that haven't shown, come here. We will set you right. except for Todd Gurley. We'll always overemphasize his abilities, but keep that in mind.
Yeah, more often than not, he performs to his abilities too. But I think my start of the week this week for running back is Zach Moss versus Seattle. I think Buffalo, Zach, we talked about it. They want to be that blue-collar team that hit you in the mouth, play some good defense, run the ball, kind of just control the line of scrimmage or whatever. And coming off a huge week for Zach Moss, I don't see why they go away from him, especially, Singletary had a decent week last week, but he hasn't looked good this year at all. Zach Moss is the guy they drafted to be, that goal line back. And it looks like from here, he might even take over that starting role from Devin Singletary. And I think this is a week that he does prove that he takes over that starting role against, not a great defense. So I'm high on Zach Moss. I think, you might even see another 2-touchdown game this week.
Perfectly capable. Obviously, the Bills should be able to move the ball through the air in Seattle, get down the red zone, pound the rock. Seems like a perfect recipe. We saw the Patriots do it, and I think Bills are very capable of doing it as well. Moving on to the wide receivers here. Again, we'll see if the game's played, but I have Devontae Adams at number 1 versus the 49ers. I have Julio Jones number 2 versus the Broncos after a couple extra days of rest. I have DeAndre Hopkins versus the Dolphins at 3. Tyreek Hill versus the Panthers at 4. And then Tyler Lockett as my Seattle wide receiver choice this week at Buffalo for number 5. What do you think about those wide receivers, Luke?
Like I said last week, we're getting to the point where we kind of know what's going to go on in fantasy football. We're back to the point where we're going to rank all the best players at the top spots where they deservedly should be. I mean, Devontae Adams is just a stud, catches touchdowns like no tomorrow. Julio Jones is a stud. DeAndre Hopkins is a stud. Tyreek Hill did well for me last week. Didn't get that 100. I don't think he got that 100 yards, but he got 2 touchdowns. And I'm guessing you're putting Tyler Lockett at 5 because Tre'Davious White will be on DK Metcalf.
Yeah, and I'll bring up the exact stats of Buffalo slot corner here in a second, but he's horrendous.
Yeah, I mean, I look at Devontae at 1, and you look back at the NFC Championship game last year when that team was stacked and healthy. Devontae had 11 receptions, 138 yards. Now, granted, game script has a lot to do with that, but like we said, this team can barely field a team. Especially if they don't have Aaron Jones. I mean, good Lord, they're going to be looking his way even more. He's going to be peppered with targets. If you're in PPR, you're licking your chops. Even if you're in half, you should still go off. He's definitely number 1. And below that, hard to argue with any of these guys at all.
Slot cornerback for the Bills, Taron Johnson. Most targeted slot cornerback in the entire league at 45 through 8 games. Obviously, that's a bad sign. Out of those 45 targets, he's given up 36 receptions for 392 yards, 103 passer rating when targeted. And this is just in the slot, so if he does move outside the slot, it's the same type of thing. Clearly, Tyler Lockett, a very good player, much better than he's seen so far, in my opinion, except for maybe Cooper Kupp, I don't know. But, yeah, it just makes too much sense for Tyler Lockett to be the matchup they exposed. They don't need to force the ball to DK Metcalf. Metcalf will get one, I'm sure, at some point in the game, but it's shaping up to be similar to a couple games ago when Lockett just was force-fed the ball the entire time with ease. But yeah, I have Metcalf at 7 still. I might go down a little bit. I have Stephon Diggs on the other side of the game at 8. I think he is also a good play. But I also looked up this week, or today, I tweeted out. He's like wide receiver 6, I believe, on the entire year. I can bring that up here in a second. Yeah, wide receiver 6 on the entire year. And he's finished as a wide receiver 1 just one time, which is interesting. Rest of the times, like last few weeks, he's been running wide receiver 21, 24, 19, 59, and 26. Yet, wide receiver 6 on the year. I don't get it. He's consistent, I guess. Still only 3 touchdowns. Seems like a perfect matchup against the Seahawks. But Trevor, what's your thoughts on Stephon Diggs after hearing those stats?
Stephon Diggs, I was high on coming into the year. But he's just left a little to be desired. And at times, I talked about this way before, when they were losing to the Chiefs in the Chiefs game, in the close game. I think he was like walking back in the no huddle offense when they still had a chance with under 2 minutes left. His attitude is horrible. He should be doing better. There's no reason he shouldn't be, top 15 every week, possibly, especially with John Brown being hurt. I just can't buy into this guy. I can't do it. So I think the placement where he is right now, you got to go with what you know. What we know is he's been underwhelming. So I say that sticks.
I'll go on the flip side of that, just because I talked up Zach Moss. I know I said he's going to have a big game. I think they start off running the ball, establishing that run right away. Get those linebackers to cheat up, and not only get those linebackers, those safeties to cheat up, maybe a little press from the corners, and that just leaves post wide open. And I know, being a Packers fan, it seems like Stephon Diggs always caught a long post route against us. Josh Allen may have the strongest arm in the league. I could see Stephon Diggs grabbing 2 or 3 long balls this week that may result in a couple touchdowns. So I'm very high on Stephon Diggs, especially against terrible secondary.
See, I agree. He absolutely should have a monster day, which means John Brown's probably going to be the one to have the monster day. I don't know, but after this I'll look up some more Seattle defensive stuff, because I'm wondering if they prevent the long bomb with their cover 3 a little bit. I'm wondering if they try to force everything underneath, and if that's the case, that would make sense for Stephon Diggs maybe not to have a monster day. I don't know. I think he's still a good play. He should face very little resistance defensively, especially if he can find the zone or the pocket in the zone. It just seems weird. Wide receiver 6 is so good, and he can't put together a top 10 week, except for against Miami. Other wide receivers to talk about here. I have Antonio Brown at wide receiver 24 right now. Obviously, a very tough player to rank. Pretty much impossible right now. Where I have him is right between Marvin Jones and Amari Cooper, and above Juju Smith-Schuster. So I just picked guys I'm comfortable with this week. I'm comfortable with Mike Williams, Deontay Johnson, Brandon Cooks, even Chase Claypool against Dallas. And we know Antonio Brown's upside. We know Tom Brady's going to try to force him the ball some. I think Marshawn Lattimore will cover Mike Evans. Now, I think that's for sure how it's going to start. If Mike Evans looks the way he has the past month, where he can barely run, that's an issue, and maybe he moves over to Antonio Brown. But right now, I think you can start Antonio Brown as a low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3. Do you have any thoughts on him, Luke?
I mean, the first thought that came to my mind is Chris Godwin is going to be out this week?
He practiced in full day. It's his finger, so if he can catch without it hurting, I guess maybe he's good to go.
Yeah, if he's good to go, I mean, I've talked about it before. The only one I really trust on this Buccaneers offense is Chris Godwin. Now throwing Antonio Brown in the loop, that just screws up all of my thinking, and now I'm going to overthink it and whatever. That's the only thing that worries about me if Chris Godwin plays, because I feel like Chris Godwin has been consistently good when he's been on the field. But Antonio Brown and Tom Brady, I mean, there's the connection there. They played a week last year in New England. I think there's that story that Antonio Brown went and stayed with Tom Brady for a couple days or so or whatever. So there probably is some chemistry there. I'm sure Brady, the competitor he is going to try to get Antonio Brown going right away. The Buccaneers, if Antonio Brown is, not like 2015 Antonio Brown, but he's somewhat of it, it looks good for the Buccaneers offense and the team going forward. So I think this is get him going, see what he can do, and ride that to the end of the year.
A question that I would have, and I have it, and I think a lot of people that I've seen on Twitter have this too, or just in, bringing it up on NFL, where you rank it, where you ask questions. Mike Evans versus Marvin Jones Jr. Because Evans, I mean, take out the game he's covered by Jair. I mean, he's only had 2 games where he's really underperformed, but we know he's touchdown dependent. And, Marvin Jones, Galladay's out, but when Galladay was out before, he was not good. So we talked about how you need to have a floor. Which one do you think is more consistent with what we've seen so far, Marvin Jones or Evans? Because they're ranked pretty closely here.
I firmly believe Marvin Jones has a higher floor this week. Mike Evans, Marshawn Lattimore has all the answers for Mike Evans. And what was his stats in week 1? He destroyed him again. He held him.
I think it was like 1 catch for a yard.
1 catch, 2 yards, and a touchdown. So the touchdown saved him, I guess. Yeah, I have zero faith in Mike Evans. His ankle is also clearly still bothering him. Now that Antonio Brown's here, maybe they can rest him a week. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But Marvin Jones, here's the other kicker now with Marvin Jones, I guess, because Matthew Stafford maybe won't play. Let me look to see who the backup is there, I guess.
See, this is killing me because both receivers can be amazing or both can be trash. And I know one's going to be good and one's going to be trash. It's just you got to guess right.
Chase Daniel is the backup for Detroit now. I have full confidence in Marvin Jones. He's fine. Chase Daniel was the longtime backup for the Bears, then for the Chiefs. He was the most successful quarterback in NFL history on like millions per pass thrown. He just kept getting paid as like the top paid backup, and he never went in. But he's decent. He's decent enough. It's not like a step down, inexperienced guy. He can at least read a defense and know, hey, these Vikings corners can't play football.
What else is odd about Mike Evans is I feel like usually, once you get a better quarterback, that only helps a player like Mike Evans. This is a weird situation, though, where he doesn't have Jameis Winston just dropping back and launching the ball with his eyes closed up in the air.
Right.
He has Tom Brady, who doesn't really, Tom Brady will take shots here and there, take some chances, but he's no Jameis Winston. It's just a really interesting storyline this year, one that I feel like a lot of people aren't talking about.
And it'll be interesting to see if someone finds some sort of consistency in this Tampa Bay receiving core, or if it's really going to be game plan specific, whoever has the hot hand each week, which will probably be the situation, and it'll be a nightmare, I guess. But yeah, if they're full go this week, good luck New Orleans, I suppose.
I just got a real quick hypothetical question here. Let's say Antonio Brown, has a decent week, maybe 75 yards, a touchdown. Chris Godwin's fully healthy next week. Which out of the 3 do you trust the most going forward then?
I trust Antonio Brown the most. I kind of trust him the most already this week. I don't trust Mike Evans. Chris Godwin, I think he's really talented, but he hasn't shown that chemistry with Brady yet. And I just know, I've seen the chemistry with Antonio Brown. I'd be very, very surprised if Antonio Brown doesn't find the end zone this week. Yeah.
To Chris Godwin, too, like, I was going to say him, but then I remembered he can't stay healthy. So, like,
weird.
that on and off chemistry, like, you wonder how that plays a role. And now he's back, but so is AB. They're going to be peppering him.
Scotty Miller.
Could he be kind of, hey, he could be the wide receiver version of Tyrod Taylor. He just, wherever he goes, it just doesn't work out. Granted, minus the punctured lung, but, who knows? So, yeah, I guess I'd go AB too.
How can the Packers watch what the Buccaneers are doing? You'd be like, nah, we're good with Alan Lazard. Fuck me. Okay. Wide receivers compared to the rest of the expert consensus. I'm 3 spots higher than Allen Robinson. I already talked about him. I have him at wide receiver 10. I have Mike Williams at wide receiver 22, coming off a big week. I think he has another one against the Raiders. I'm 4 spots higher on him. I have Marvin Jones at 23, 4 spots higher on him. Antonio Brown, I said at 24. That's 8 spots higher than the consensus, and that's totally fair for them to rank them lower. I think you could put Antonio Brown pretty close to anywhere this week, and I would be like, okay, yeah, I could see that. Like any scenario would play out and it'd be fine. Jacoby Myers now, I have him at wide receiver 42, 7 spots higher than the consensus. I understand it's not exciting, but he is the wide receiver 1 for New England right now. 2 weeks ago, 6 targets, 4 receptions, 60 yards, and a touchdown. Last week, 10 targets, 6 yards, 50 or 6 receptions, 58 yards. They play the Jets this week. He's gonna find himself with like 20 yards of space, I'm sure. So, I mean, putting him at wide receiver 42, I don't think is too high. I have him just below Nicole Hardman, below Darnell Mooney, Christian Kirk. That's the range where I like him. I think the targets are safe. So if the targets are safe and it's against the Jets, I think production's going to come. Do you have any thoughts on that, Trevor? And it's fine to say no because it's Jacoby Myers.
I'm just so disappointed because I was so high on Demir Bird, and I still am. And then Cam Newton decided he wanted to forget how to throw the football. I learned my lesson. He looks great. So does every other receiver that comes through. The difference is they have Cam Newton. So I'm not going to buy into it yet. Personally, I buy more into like a Darnell Mooney type, but I just don't buy into it yet.
Yeah, Trevor, I'm with you on that. Just to piggyback off that point there, you said Cam Newton forgot how to throw the ball. I don't even know if he ever knew how to throw the ball. Just a weird, like you said, you were high on Bird. I was high on N'Keal Harry. Didn't work out. It seems if you're not an absolute stutter receiver, it never really works out well in New England. But yeah, I don't have any thoughts. I'm staying away.
The wide receiver I'm most lower on compared to the consensus this week is Marquise Brown. And I think this has been a pattern. I'm not for sure. But again, Colts are a really tough defense. And Lamar Jackson's not good at throwing the football. I have him at wide receiver 29, which is 7 spots lower than the consensus. So they have him at wide receiver 22. And again, he's finished higher than wide receiver 26 just once the entire year. And that was against Cincinnati. That was 77 yards and a touchdown for wide receiver 16. Wide receiver 49 last week, 45 the week before that. I just don't have any confidence in this passing game at all. Luke, any thoughts on that?
I mean, Marquise Brown is a player who should be so much better than what he is right now. I saw on Twitter the other day, I think it was like a 2.5-minute compilation of Lamar Jackson just missing wide open Marquise Brown. And, it's not Marquise Brown's fault. It's Lamar Jackson's. What everyone's talking about, kind of like the Packers, Baltimore needs a receiver, to be that guy. Marquise Brown is a good receiver. It just Lamar Jackson can't get him the ball. As much as I want Marquise Brown to do good, as many leagues as I have him in, he might find the bench in most of my leagues, barring buys, whatever, just because that quarterback situation is not well. If Lamar Jackson can show he can throw the ball a little bit like he did last year, then I'll be higher on Marquise Brown. But as of now, I'm kind of on the down. It's been a disappointment for most of the Ravens, especially Marquise Brown for me.
Yeah, I agree. The Ravens, they need a wide receiver, but they need him to be about 10 feet tall with a 40-foot vertical to catch some of these passes. Marquise Brown is at 44 targets. That's less targets than receptions for half of these receivers. And he's at 44 targets and only 27 receptions. So even when he gets targeted, it's not great. But I do see a trend. It seems like he has an oddly good game every 3 games with 2 duds in between. Well, he's just recently had 2 duds. So maybe he defies all logic.
All right, Trevor, I'm starting him now just because you said that.
I mean, it's just... Oh, whatever. We'll go with trends. Maybe this is a game where Lamar Jackson fakes us all into thinking something has changed, and he comes against New England against a bad defense, puts up a stinker. I don't know. To be honest, though, I thought you ranked him too high. So, yeah, I'd agree with your ranking.
So if he performs this week, then buckle up for Week 12 against the Steelers in Pittsburgh, because that's when he's going to go off. So maybe. I hope he goes off this week so we know, because we'll know for certain, and that's the week you need to watch for Marquise Brown.
Yeah. that analysis, Trevor, just maybe do a 180 on my take there. I think I'm putting Marquise
We'll cut
on
this
my
out.
DFS.
Hey, I'm just saying, I'm only Todd Gurley approved. Okay, when it comes to wide receivers, tight ends, I'm not right. Okay, so let's pump the brakes a little bit.
I'm going to just list a bunch of wide receivers that I'm 3 spots lower on, 3 to 5. If you want to talk about any of them, fine. I don't know. I think it's pretty whatever. It's not like I'm super low on them. So Stephon Diggs, Terry McLaurin, Juju Smith-Schuster, DJ Shark, Corey Davis, Christian Kirk, Laviska Shenault, Michael Gallup, Curtis Samuel, Keelan Cole, Preston Williams, Scotty Miller, Nelson Aguilar, Traquan Smith, Danny Amendola. Trevor, any one of them pique your interest or not really?
Corey Davis does.
That's fair.
I think he's been out 2 weeks. Every other week he scored double digits. He scored 6 in PPR this past week, but with a touchdown. Pittsburgh, he scored 15, but with a touchdown. He's very touchdown dependent. Obviously, you can't just say about any player, well, take away their touchdowns and they suck, because it obviously counts. But against Chicago, I mean, man, they got a gauntlet. Indianapolis, Baltimore, Indianapolis. These are going to be a rough 4 weeks for him. I think he's definitely, I like the ranking right now at 34. I think he's a guy, if you're smart, and he's a guy that if you do this could win you your league. Wait those weeks out, and then possibly try to trade buy low for him for the fantasy playoffs, because then he's got Cleveland and some of these teams coming up, and he could be a cute little flex throw in there.
Yeah, Trevor, I totally agree with you. I'm kind of upset you took Corey Davis, because I talked him up last night. Last night I was going to talk him up again, but I'll make the case for Terry McLaurin being a little low. I think. Obviously, the whole thing around Washington is they don't have a good quarterback. They don't have a great offense. I think that Kyle Allen has kind of exceeded my expectations, at least this year. I think he's in a situation this year where, unlike last year, this year he's not expected to be that guy, to keep the Panthers afloat like he was last year. Terry McLaurin had 7 catches, 90 yards, and a touchdown against Dallas 2 weeks ago. I know the Giants are a different animal than Dallas, but I'm still on that train of a receiver's got to catch the ball. I think Terry McLaurin, he's athletic. He's a good player. Maybe 12 is a little high. I'll go back on that. But I think, he is probably the number one option, unless you guys don't think so. But in a Washington team in a very close division, they need this win against the Giants. I see them getting the ball to their playmakers, and Terry McLaurin is their playmaker.
He's for sure the number one option. I mean, his targets the last 4 weeks have been 14, 7, 12, and 11. Again, I have him at wide receiver 12. He played the Giants 2 weeks ago, had 12 targets, turned that into 7 receptions for 74 yards, which is a fine game. It was good for a wide receiver 27. I mean, he faces the best defender on the entire Giants team, probably one of the best players on the entire Giants team in James Bradbury. So I'm not a huge fan of playing wide receivers who are going to get shadowed by someone for the second time that year, if that makes sense. Like they've seen his moves, they've seen what he wants to do against them. Now he gets to do it again. So I typically don't like to do that. And I would just personally assume they shadow Terry McLaurin just because, outside of him, who do they have at wide receiver? Literally, like, can you name the next wide receiver? Because I can't.
I'll play devil's advocate. I don't think it matters with Danny Dimes dropping fumbles left and right like rings from Sonic. He overthrows everybody. I mean, damn, have him on the field 40 minutes.
Fair.
He might get enough targets, but, I mean, like you said, it's tough.
That was the scenario last time they played. I believe the Giants, if I'm right, ran 48 plays or something. It was about 20 plays less than the average, and it was because of that. Probably a similar type of performance here. I don't know. Any other wide receiver you guys want to talk about? I guess sticking on the Dallas, being disappointed in Dallas. I have Amari Cooper all the way down to wide receiver 25. combination between I don't know who's going to be the quarterback, and they're bad, and they play the Steelers. Holy Trinity there.
Yeah, I don't trust anyone on that Dallas offense. If you drafted Amari Cooper, you're probably going to have to play him just where you drafted him. Not a lot of receivers, but I'm not expecting much out of Dallas's offense for the rest of the year, I don't think.
This team can't even get him going against the Eagles or the Giants, much less anybody else. So against Pittsburgh, good luck.
That's fine, whoever's doing this for Fantasy Pros, but I'm looking at Amari Cooper, 5-star matchup in the green. He's such a good play this week. Come on now. He's not. Coming off a wide receiver 96 finish last week, fire up Amari Cooper.
Oh.
How much did his agent pay them to put him up there?
No kidding. Let's head to tight ends now, a position we hate talking about because they're a nightmare, and they got even worse without George Kittle now. Tight end 1, lock it in, Travis Kelce. That's a no-brainer. At this point, tight end number 2, Darren Waller, is kind of a no-brainer. After that, it gets a little different. I have TJ Hawkinson at 3, Rob Gronkowski at 4, and then Hunter Henry at 5. Trevor, if you disagree with that, that's completely fine. Because I think you could rank tight ends 3 through 20 in any order. I think that's probably fair. But what do you think about those 5?
I will respectfully pass because I already feel like we talk about them too much. So I'll just wait till we get to the higher and lower.
Okay.
I got nothing to say about these guys.
Fair.
Yeah, I mean, there's some playmakers here. Travis Kelce, Darren Waller, playmakers. Probably the 2 best tight ends with Kittle out. Hawkinson, it seems to be, a focal point of that Lions offense. I like him, I guess. Like you said, you can rank anyone 3 to 20. No one would really give you any slack on it. I'm just looking at you. I'm trying to find a way where I can disagree with it, but I don't really have any opinions on these tight ends. I hate the tight end position. I wish it was eliminated from football. But I'm trying to disagree. I can't because I don't care enough, I guess.
I would like to make the analogy. You saying there's some playmakers here is kind of like when you're trying to hype up your buddy to get a girlfriend. You're like, he's got a personality. It's kind of like the same thing. So, geez, yeah.
To hype up TJ Hawkinson a little bit, obviously no Kenny Golladay this week. When he left the game, I think he left pretty early last game. Hawkinson got a season-high 10 targets, and that was against a tough Colts defense. So, hey, that's good. I mean, cool. I think TJ Hawkinson, in actuality, I think he has a very high floor relative to the rest of the tight ends. So, hey, good enough for me for top 3. After that, I guess, Gronkowski is clearly an option in the red zone. So, hey, there we go. I think they get down to the red zone. And then Hunter Henry has been wildly disappointing this year. Has been a top 10 tight end just once, and that was ranking number 10. So I don't want to put him in my top 5, but I don't know who else to put there. Maybe Noah Fant. But yeah. In terms of tight ends I'm higher on, not many. I have Eric Ebron at tight end 8, which is 5 spots higher than the consensus. Luke, is it Eric Ebron week? You were talking about it yesterday.
Hell yeah, it's Eric Ebron week this week. Like I said, like I always say about Eric Ebron is the ultimate. Is it the Eric Ebron week? I'm convincing myself that this is in fact the Eric Ebron week. Dallas sucks. It seems like a ground and pound game for Pittsburgh here, and what receivers do better off a ground and pound than receiving tight ends? Just based off of play action, little dump outs to the flat. Eric Ebron, I think, is athletic enough to take a couple inroads, take him 10, 15 yards. I could see, a 6 reception, 55-yard touchdown game out of Eric Ebron this week, which might be good for tight end 2 this week.
I apologize. I'm not laughing at your take. Just that hell yeah was more enthusiasm than anybody has ever had combined about any tight end at all this entire
Especially
year.
Eric Ebron.
Yeah, I mean, I like him too, but I mean, at this point, every tight end outside of the top 5 is more of a meme than anything else.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think he'll hit against Dallas. I just can't believe we're talking about Eric Ebron's the Todd Gurley of tight ends, I guess. So, hey, I'll roll with them too. Eric Ebron week. Hell yeah, let's go.
Okay. Where do we go from here?
Eric Ebron show here soon.
They have to be. The only other tight end I'm higher on is Ross Dwelly. I talked about him earlier. I have him at tight end 13, so clearly I like him quite a bit. That's 13 spots higher than the consensus. If Mullins is quarterback and this game does play, I said this yesterday, Shanahan continues to say, Nick Mullins is going to be a great coach someday, which means he's not a very good quarterback, but he's smart. So he's going to make the right read. I have full confidence that Dwelly's going to be open against the Packers defense. And then on top of that, it's going to be short routes, and Mullins doesn't have a strong arm. So I think he's going to soak up targets. And we've seen Dwelly, I think last year played pretty well with Kittle out. So, compared to the rest of these players, if Dwelly's the one healthy option, I think he sees targets, which is a high floor. And honestly, he may be top 10 before tomorrow night if the game is played.
Jordan Reed, I'll set the line at 19 and a half snaps before he gets hurt. So even if he is healthy, fire up Dwelly.
Yeah, Jordan Reed, there's no doubt he has COVID, right? Like, there's no way.
Jordan Reed and Jordan Reed's agent, if you're watching this, we're not happy you have COVID. It's just that you get hurt a lot. So just a disclaimer. Don't sue us. Don't come after us. We love you.
It's just that if you think anyone in the NFL has COVID, you think of Jordan Reed instantly.
100%. 100%. Anything bad that can happen, for sure. One other tight end I want to talk about that I like before talking about all of them that I hate. Elbert. I'll call him Alberto because I can't pronounce his last name. Tight end 2 in Denver. Was Drew Lock's teammate in college. He's played 3 games so far this year. Finished as tight end 21, tight end 10, tight end 14. Last week, he only got 1 target, but he turned it into a 9-yard reception for a touchdown. Before that, he had 13 targets over 2 games. Those 13 targets went for 105 yards. I think he's a part of this offense. Yeah, I don't have him high. I have him at tight end 23, but I think he's someone to keep on your radar, and if Noah Fant does go down, he definitely has tight end 1 upside for whatever that's worth, I guess. Now, here's my weekly Mark Andrews hate segment. We talked about him last week, how I don't like him, and he's not very good. And guess what? He performed admirably. 3 receptions, 32 yards, tight end 22. Perfect. I have him as tight end 10 this week. That's 7 spots lower than the consensus. So yes, the consensus has him at tight end 3 against the Colts. People desperately want their preseason rankings to be correct, so they keep ranking Mark Andrews high. Learn to adjust, please. If he's not a top 3 tight end, he's been up outside the top 30 pretty much every week. Yeah. If he doesn't score, he's not going to do well, and I don't think he scores. So, is there any reason you guys like Mark Andrews this week, I guess?
No, I don't think I like Mark Andrews anymore because I went on that rant for Marquise Brown being a good receiver, and I think Mark Andrews is just soaking up Marquise Brown's targets, and obviously not doing anything with them. So, I mean, the targets are there. You're not doing anything with them. I don't think I want you on my fantasy football team.
I don't like him. That's all I have to say. I mean, he's got Lamar at quarterback, so not really a lot we haven't already said pretty much.
Yeah, like targets, to your point, targets are there. 6, 3, 8, 3, 9, 4, 6. He catch like half of them. He gets no yards after the catch because he's not athletic. I didn't like him heading into this year, but I hate him now. So that's where I'm at. Robert Tanyan I have at 14. That's 3 spots lower. Same take as every week. Jimmy Graham I have at 18. That's 3 spots lower. He's turning into Packers Jimmy Graham now. Mike Gesicki I have at 19. That's 5 spots lower. For some reason, he's not involved in the offense now. I think that changes at some point, but I'm not going to rank him high until that happens. And then Irv Smith Jr. I have him at 22. That's 3 spots lower. I'll probably come up on him. Anybody else you guys want to talk about?
Unfortunately, yes.
Okay.
2 guys. I'm going to make it real quick. Don't worry. Dalton Schultz at 16. Somehow, he's the one receiver that works out of all the talent they have. They love going to him. So keep him on your radar. And Trey Burton, last 2 weeks, they love running with him at the goal line. Yeah. He's had 2 rushing touchdowns the last 2 weeks, and he's getting like 4 to 5 targets a game. So he's a guy to keep an eye on too.
Yeah, I'll bring up a guy too. I'm sure we just went on this huge tangent of how we hate tight ends, and Trevor, we're going to bring up 3 of us here. But I just want to know your guys' opinion on Logan Thomas. I was high on him to start the year, kind of, leveled off, but he's had back-to-back games with a touchdown and over 40 yards. Is that something that needs to be looked at for the future?
100%. After week 1, I talked about how I like them if they can get down to the red zone. The problem is Washington's just not very good at moving the football. But yeah, he's safe. 4 targets in 4 straight weeks. He's got 4 receptions in 4 of his 7 games, it looks like. If they get down to the red zone, he's a big athletic option. I think he can catch a touchdown. Outside of that, 102 yards over the past 2 weeks as well. One of those games was against the Giants, who obviously they face this week. He had 3 catches, 42 yards, and a touchdown. He for sure should be on the radar. And then following this week, which I think is kind of a tough matchup, but then he plays the Lions, the Bengals, then the Cowboys. So I think that's the 3-week stretch where he very much is usable.
He reminds me of a slightly better version than Mark Andrews. He needs a touchdown. Mm-hmm. I'm looking at him. He has 4 receptions every week, but 3. 2 of the weeks he had 4 targets with a catch for less than 10 yards. He's not going to get you yards. So if you're going to start him, understand that he needs a touchdown for him to be of any value to you.
That's a good point, though. I don't think I value him any lower than Mark Andrews on any given week. Yeah, I think they're completely on par with each other. I think, yeah, maybe I'll move them really close to each other. Fuck Mark Andrews. Yeah. Jordan Akins, I believe, comes back this week for Houston. He was doing pretty good, actually. 39, 55, 28, and 46 yards in his first 4 weeks. More importantly, that means Darren Fells is not usable anymore. Yeah. If you start Jordan Reed this week, good luck. I think that's the only other thing I need to say. Oh, also, Jonnu Smith was really good for a while. When the Titans are fully healthy, they just don't use him for whatever reason. 2, 4, and 2 targets the past 3 weeks. I think that coincides with A.J. Brown being back, at least pretty closely. So as long as they're fully healthy, I just don't think Jonnu Smith needs to be looked at.
Yeah, I think, Trevor, like you kind of said with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, if you can sell him now, do it. That's how I feel about Jonnu Smith. Just because I think Derrick Henry is an absolute monster when it comes to cold weather games. And I think A.J. Brown, just based off of last year, is an absolute monster when it comes to cold weather games. And they just got Corey Davis back, who's going to get Jonnu Smith's looks. So, I mean, people might still be trying to get, we talk about how bad tight ends, people might need a tight end and see that Jonnu Smith had, a great start to the year. They might go after him a little bit. So if you can get something for him, go ahead, do it right away.
And even Adam Humphries has shown flashes too, at least earlier in the season before he got COVID. So, yeah, they got plenty of weapons.
Agreed. Anything else you guys want to touch on before we get out of here?
No, I'll say to all the Todd Gurley fantasy owners that are watching, go have yourself a bag of circus peanuts and let me know if they give you as much satisfaction as Todd Gurley does when he scores a touchdown.
I will say to Todd Gurley fans, hey, when he performs again, Zach, what's your Twitter handle again? I just want the people to know.
At Fantasy Flurry, right below my
All
head
right.
here.
Tweet him, ask for Girly Guys merch to drop, and hey, pressure the man, get him to do it. So if he performs, maybe you never know.
I did. I'm not gonna lie. After last week's show, I did try to create some Tag Girly merch. My Photoshop skills were not up to par. I did not like the way they looked, so I did not release them. But I will still.
Anything with Todd Gurley looks good.
Anything
with that man.
It did look good. Yeah, we'll follow us all on Twitter. You can see all of our handles. Hopefully the game tomorrow gets played. If it does, whether it does or not, there's going to be a pretty big update to these rankings. Clearly, hopefully there's no other massive COVID news. But follow us all. We'll all be talking about it. Luke is hopefully going to be getting a Circus Peanuts sponsorship pretty soon. I'll see. Is there a company that creates those, or is it just like Menards generic brand?
You know, every time I go to Menards, I go to Menards to go grocery shopping just to get Circus Peanuts. So
they have some good $1 Jack's Pizza there too. I'm just saying.
How many people listening know what Menards is? But this is that, or I think Quick Trip's got their own brand as well.
They sure do.
They do.
They sure do.
We will push to get you some Circus Peanuts. I think that would be funny. It's kind of like, okay, random tangent here. I got a big box of Bugles sent to me from the company because I was like tweeting at them, for like 5 days straight. They sent me like a big box of merch, and I had like a Bugles pop socket shirt. And it's such a random.
What is this? So you can do this to Bugles, but you can't do this to the Falcons about Todd Gurley? Come on, let's get our priorities straight. Shirt design, Todd Gurley and all our faces on Circus Peanuts dancing around. Hey, we got options here.
If there's someone who's a good graphic designer, message me. I will give you a percentage of the proceeds as well as these two. I don't need a profit from this because I would feel very dirty profiting off of this bullshit. Yeah, okay, let's get out of here. God, okay.